But you start finding your own voice. I think at the end of the day, it's about your own voice. Do you mean?
On this week's episode of That Sound podcast, we have guitarist Michal Kulbaka, who is the guitarist in Brian Downeys Alive Dangerous band. Of course, Brian Downey is the drummer from Thin Lizzy, and Michal is touring around Europe and around the country with this band. We got a great insight into Michal and his life on the road, so strap yourselves in and enjoy this podcast.
On this week's episode of That Sound podcast, we have guitar maestro Michal Kulbaka. Hailing all the way from Poland, we've inherited him as one of our own in Ireland now, and Michal is currently playing with Brian Downeys Alive Dangerous. Michal, a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. And hello, lads. Hello, everybody. Hope you're good. Yeah.
We're all getting on well. How is everything going with you these days?
Just being really busy. Do you mean doing lots of different things? There's no time to kind of stop anymore. So everything is just like total havoc. Different gigs, live and work, and obviously trying to get some stuff done at home, which is impossible lately. It's like there's no time for anything. It's not enough hours in the day.
There's definitely not enough hours in the day, something that we've found ourselves here on the podcast with everything else in life. But thank you for taking the time and effort to come on and have a crack with us.
Wait till you're gonna have kids, man. That's gonna change.
Gavin knows all about that, but I don't know anything about it yet.
It's a juggling act, Michal. You know all about it.
Yeah, put it away as long as you can. Don't
So, Michal, can we go back to the start? When did you start playing music, or when was the first time you picked up a guitar? Do you remember?
I think it was probably about, I don't know, like I always kind of, I had two oldest brothers. One is 5 years older than me, the other one is 7. And my oldest brother, he always been into like rock music and stuff like that. So he kind of, obviously growing up, being a teenager in like the early 1990s, my brother Martin, right? He was sort of fascinated with all the rock stuff, and especially Guns N' Roses came out at that time. And Aerosmith, that Get a Grip album and all this stuff, and all that stuff was MTV, and then briefly we had MTV for a very short time back in Poland at the time. So I remember those video clips when I was a kid, like 5, 6. So like that's how I kind of started. So I always played music, you know what I mean. And then I don't know, my brother Adam as well, when he kind of went up to that age of being a teenager and being miserable as a teenager like everybody of us, it's like just hating everything. He got into music as well, which is I think was more like probably Pearl Jam, and I'd say more Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath. But he started obviously bringing from his friends some cassettes and stuff like that. So my brother's always kind of bringing the music, and then my parents, they always had like, my dad would have like collection of like vinyls when I was a kid, when I was small, of like the Polish rock music from the 70s and 80s, which is back then was quite big in Poland. Still it is actually. And then my mom would have like the Beatles cassettes and CDs, and like Hank Marvin with the Shadows and all that stuff. And I think I shared Elvis as well. And I think like my brothers kind of listened to heavy music at the time. The Guns N' Roses was heavy music and Metallica and all this, and I was a bit like, being small, I didn't like it, and I kind of ended up listening to my mom's sort of records, like Elvis. Obviously, I loved Elvis. That was my first kind of a love with music, and the Beatles. And I think then when I got a bit older, I sort of started listening to what my brothers were listening to, like the Sex Pistols, Guns N' Roses, and the Police, and all these bands. Obviously, some Polish rock bands from the 80s and punk rock. But we had to listen on the headphones because there was a lot of cursing, so my mom couldn't trying to hide and listen to all that stuff. But that's sort of that was the kind of thing, and I think kind of like, obviously my brother was listening to Hendrix, so I started listening to Hendrix as well. I went kind of mad about him. So I think probably the first time I've heard Hank Marvin and Scotty Moore probably was something like that. I don't know, kind of really attract me into guitar. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think the Sleepwalk was the song with Apache, maybe, when I heard this clean kind of tone. And, That's All Right Mama and all these kind of stuff. I think that's sort of like, I don't know, I kind of like the sound of you know.
Yeah.
And obviously my brother is, you know, it's like 1996, 97. I think my brother Martin, he got a bass guitar of my cousin. Obviously the bass was a bit and stuff like that, and my dad and he just started sort of like finding the parts and put it together again. So Martin just started kind of playing with his mates. They were kind of mainly playing punk and stuff like that. So yeah, and then I was like, then we had another cousin that had a guitar, and he gave a guitar to Martin. I don't know, I just couldn't. I tried it on the bass at the start when I was 9, you know, like messing around with it a little bit, you know, like playing this kind of background thing, you know. Well, I didn't I don't know, I didn't like it at the time. I was interested in it, but I didn't like the idea of playing it, maybe. I don't know. And then one day I think I was 11, about 11 or 12. My dad used to work in the factory, not very far from our, like, you know, sort of a family blocks. Do you mean like a kind of, you know, what you call it, like, you know, blocks, like sort of like, in Poland you have like those big kind of blocks, and they used to be built by the companies that had the factories and stuff like that. Do you mean they were like,
okay,
it's like stuff like that. So we lived in one of those, and my dad obviously used to kind of go from after work with his mates, especially on Fridays, fucking drinks, because obviously back in the 70s, the easiest thing you could buy in Poland was, you know, vodka and stuff like that. So everybody was drinking. They even drank at work. You know what I mean? So I remember when I was 90s, like bringing lunch to my dad, because it was on like a 10 minutes walk or 15 minutes walk to his work. You would see like, you know, these like offices, and you could see underneath the table, you know, stuff and drinks and things like that. You know what I mean? And sometimes, you know, one of them would be locked already, like at lunchtime. You know, so that was kind of that was the culture over there, like, you know, back in the day. But I remember like one of the Fridays, you know, like they usually finish work at 2 o'clock, you know. Okay, 2:15, he's not home, right? Okay, 2:30 he's not home. 3 o'clock he's not home. 2:30 he's not home. You know, my mom was just like fuming, you know what I mean? Started kind of like, go mad, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you know, and obviously I was the youngest, so it was my turn now to kind of pick up my dad from the bar and bring him home, you know what I mean? So I went there one day, and he was sitting with his mates, obviously had a few drinks, you know, and you know, a little bit on him already, and he was like, just wait for me, you know. And his mate was like, you know, like, I heard your boys are playing in the bands, you know, I have a guitar as well. If you want, I can sell it to you, you know, for a bottle of vodka at the time, you know. That's what it was. This was the deal. I was like, oh, Dad, come on home. I don't want to play guitar. I don't want to guitar, you know. So it's like, you know, eventually I managed to get him out. We went home, you know, and next day, obviously, my mom was kind of like, you know, it was eating his head. But that next day I think it was like, maybe it was before, I don't know, maybe before Easter or something like that. And I remember we were cleaning the carpets and from all the dust and stuff like that. You do that back then people used to do that, you know, all the time. And then my dad just got disappeared for a couple of minutes, and he brought me guitar without the strings, and he said to me like, well, if you learn how to play guitar, I'll buy you strings. And then that was it. So my brother Martin, he was there with me at the time, and he started actually going to college in another kind of like neighboring city, bigger city. So they had a music shop, and he bought me strings and put the strings on. And then I got this book with like a kind of folk songs, Polish folk songs, whatever it was. So I started figuring out the chords diagrams, do you mean? And obviously I learned everything upside down. Do you mean? Like, see, and all this kind of stuff. And then he told me like, Egypt, it's the other way around. It's like that's how I figured out the chords, you know. And then went from there, you know what I mean? And and I think, like, you know, obviously I started figuring out stuff like learning chords, playing songs. And obviously then my brother Martin also bought me a couple of books. He brought me a book from his friend. It was like by a Polish guy named Leszek Cichoński. He had he's a kind of blues guitar player in Poland. He's an older guy now, and he used to have these books in the 90s. Like, there was this kind of a company that released all these, like, something like fundamental changes, but not back in Poland. They released the books for like bass players, drummers, and all the session guys in Poland. They would put the books out together, right? And they also have a TV show on the local TV, national TV show, that in the morning you can watch it, and they'll be playing and showing the stuff that was in the books, you know what I mean? And then that was going for a while. But I got that book, and I had some of those recordings on the VHS cassette. So I was kind of watching, like, obviously learning the pentatonics, and it took me like 6 months. It was just everyday learning in any way, up the neck, down the neck, this position, trying to connect them, you know what I mean? And spend a lot of time on that. And then I start hearing little patterns, you know, start picking up a bit of a solo. So I kind of sit down and trying to find the key or tune the guitar to it. once I find a key that was closed, you know what I mean, and then figure out stuff from there. And obviously at the time it was all wrong. There's no tabs, and like obviously there was tabs, but they were kind of hard to get. And one time my brother brought Metallica tabs. I think it was probably Nothing Else Matters, and I just couldn't fucking figure it out. It was just like just reading numbers, you know. That was like 5 hours later he'd be playing that still, you know what I mean. It was just too hard because you had nobody to explain it to, you know. And I was just like, you know, I was just screw this. I started learning everything by ear, and then had that book, right? So work on that book, and you know, trying to crack like a bit of the Purple songs, you know, a bit of the Shadows. So I started picking up bits, you know what I mean. But it wasn't enough. And then I think he brought me another book. It was by another Polish guy that he had like a book that he covered all the like 50s guitar players from Jenny Vincent and all these, so Cliff Gallup and all these kind of guys, like Chuck Berry, and I learned from that some licks, and then I could hear these. Obviously, the other book had it as well, so I had a couple of licks, blues licks, and I could start kind of figure out stuff out from there by ear. But it was like hours and hours sitting, you know, actually wrecking some of the cassettes and CDs and CD players to that point, you know what I mean, going back and forth. And then there was no slowing down back then, so you really had to get quick, you know, and you'd be like scrolling 2 seconds every time, 50 times till you get it, you know what I mean. So it was very, very hard to learn. You know, there's also one teacher in my school. She was a lady that was teaching us like a sort of a musical subject at the time, and I think that was probably maybe in the 6th class. It was just briefly when I started playing, and I just went for 2 lessons. Just to me, like, go away, learn yourself. There's nothing else I can teach you. You just show me a couple of strumming patterns. So most of the times, I really kind of, it was either Martin's going to show me something, or like he kind of sort of a direct me. It's like, you know, you should maybe try playing with these fingers, like it'll be a bit easier. You know what I mean, like that. So he was in a way great kind of a mentor and teacher, my oldest brother, you know what I mean. At the time they were like, it was probably, you know, around 2000, 2001, actually 2000, sorry. Then I got my first electric guitar, you know. And I remember like I was saving from like my birthdays, you know, from my aunties and my parents, you know, and you know, trying to put it together. So I remember that my brother had his probably first, second job when he was studying in that bigger city, right? He went with me and he forked out half his wages and bed, bought me the guitar. Do you mean like we went together and we bought a Squire Strat at the time? I think it was maybe 1999 or 2000. I'd say it would be more probably 2000. And that was my first electric guitar. But before that, the guitar that my dad gave to me for a bottle of vodka, it was actually a Russian guitar. It was called Povdin, I think. And it was like it was sort of like a classical Spanish guitar, but had the steel strings. I think it was probably made in 70s and 60s. The action wasn't, like the neck was big on it, and the action was, you know, you could play with it with the lower tension strings. You put bronze strings, you were like, screwed, there's no way. So I think I was playing them. Once I started learning pentatonics, I changed to them before I moved to electric guitar. But my fingers were always in bits. When I was playing, I had to have no skin left, onto the point that they were actually just hanging out on the sides to be all red. I mean, sometimes I had to put the guitar for a week just to get the row back again.
Just to give the fingers some rest.
Yeah. But
do you still have those guitars at home in Poland, Michael? Are they in your parents' house?
No, I sold actually the acoustic guitar to get. I kind of regret it now, you know, because it'd be a nice piece of history, and you know, my dad is gone now, so like it'd be nice just to have that as a memorabilia in a way, even, you know, to just have it as like a kind of, for me, historical sort of value to it.
Yes.
Yeah. I sold it to a mate of mine that used to live across another block. In the States, that's what I was trying to say. Sorry, I was missing the word. It is housing estates, right? So, kind of like Ballymun, right? But maybe not as bad. But but similar sort of idea, right? But it's
I get you.
But it's so I sold to this guy. You know, he was kind of rocker metal head, and listened to him and all these kind of bands from Scandinavia. You know, it was quite big at the time as well. He had that guitar for a while, and I think I bought it Epiphone SG from another guy in my school, which was actually horrible because there's a bolt on and the neck was loose on it, and that's probably why I still hate SGs. I just can't, you know, it's just a breadboard.
Just can't do it for you.
No, for some reason I love the look. I kind of like the look of it. It's appealing to me, but it's not. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like that, you know. Like
that 64 Caspers though is very tasty. That could tempt you.
Well, if I will ever go for SG, probably would be something like that kind of model. You know what I mean? Like whatever, custom shop, whatever, the vintage or whatever. But that's the only SG that I can find. Like, wow, you know what I mean? I love the look of them and sounds of them. Anything after that, I had 2 SGs, never bound with them. I sold them. I move on them because just it doesn't feel like it's Les Paul. It does feel playing great. Like obviously, it's a great guitar as well. But just I don't know. I just feel like it's going to break my hands if I play it. Just doesn't feel, I don't know, strong. Same with Explorer. Like I had Explorer years ago, and then every time I was banging it everywhere with the headstock, I thought the headstock's going to come off. Like just, I mean, very delicate. You know. So I don't know.
It sounds like you were very, very determined from a young age, Michael, to master the guitar. You know, when you had you didn't have a whole lot of information. Like you said, you were listening to music at a young age. Stop, start, listening, mastering it. Like it definitely sounds like you were determined to get it.
Yeah, because I think like maybe, you know, because obviously I was playing volleyball and football at the time, but I wasn't like great at that as my brothers were, you know, or my mates.
Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, and then once I got the guitar, like extra guitar, like fucking forget about everything. I was just at home, and like when it was like summer holidays between, you know, like obviously we finished school over there in June and we go back in September. I would play for 3 months for 7 hours. I wake up in the morning, you know, I had my breakfast, and then till the evening my mum would call me for the dinner, you know what I mean? And that's what I've seen. I would spend at home and just play guitar. And at the time I used to build like the World War II planes. I was into World War II history. And I was building the plane, like model planes and all that kind of stuff. And even that went on the side over time, because then I went, like, you know, the secondary school, obviously the gymnasium, and then the high school. I just like even I never really liked school. I don't think I'd ever fit into the school. I never really, like, I thought always the teachers were always bullshitting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So not all of them, but some of them. Some of them I didn't. I don't know. I just didn't get on with a lot of probably my colleagues at the time as well, because, you know, it was like maybe me and maybe another 2 guys. Probably I was the only one that was really mad into guitar, that probably nobody understood me. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
And I was determined to just learn. I just want to learn how to play guitar. That's all what I cared when I was younger, you know, obviously, and trying to get the better guitar. So like that old guitar, I sold it to get this G. Then I sold this G to get another Squier Strat, because the other Strat, in the space of a year, I just wrecked the frets. Right. Like, if you look at the, you know, the neck radius, it was just like this, you know what I mean?
Stevie Ray.
Yeah, and I actually sold that Squier as well, that my brother sort of helped me to buy it at the time. Kind of regret it, you know what I mean? Because now if I'll have this, and I probably at the time, if I don't have money, I'll probably kept them, you know what I mean, if I knew. But the time was like, you know, shit, this guitar is like, it's banjaxed. I have to get something at least the same or either a little bit better, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So funny enough, then before I left to Ireland, obviously I had a Hunter Les Paul, and I tried like. Then I didn't have a guitar for a while because some guy scammed me on one of those like kind of eBay pages in Poland and sent me like a totally like fucking junk of a Strat. I meant to be Mexican Strat. It was actually painted with hammerite. It was just awful. The frets were bad, just really bad. The guitar, you couldn't play it. My dad had me to kind of restore it, but we couldn't do the frets because we didn't have the tools. So I was devastated. And a friend of mine from school had borrowed me his oldest brothers. Was a Yolana Les Paul Custom from, I think, 1977. So, you know, that was the guitar I had for a while, and then I had the Hunter Rockwood. And then eventually I got some money together, and I bought Epiphone. It was an Epiphone standard, it was a Seymour Duncan's. And then it came from some like north part of Poland, right, with this case. And short story, right? I came with it to Ireland, and then I bought my Les Paul Classic, my first Gibson. I sent it back home. Then I told my brother I need a spare guitar to bring me back again when he goes on holidays. And he put in the case, probably didn't tune it. And the case was a hard case, but it wasn't too hard. It wasn't too sturdy, right? You couldn't like step on it. And basically they smashed the headstock, right? But now, 2 weeks ago, my student comes in, and I helped him to pick the guitar on Alvarez, right? It was like a blue Epiphone Les Paul. Not very far from where I live in Ballybridges, right? His mom picked it up for him, and he comes into the class, and I'm looking at his case, and I'm going like, fuck, that looks like my case. The one I brought to Ireland, right? in 2006. And then I was kind of like, nah, it couldn't be, you know. And then seeing last week, and I was like, shit, that's my case. And then he came in obviously last Thursday, and I said to him, Adam, I think this is my case, that I actually brought my guitar here to Ireland in 2006. And it's like, how can you be sure? I said, like, look, it's the same case. It's dented here, has a sticker on it. I just couldn't, like, the details, you mean? But as I was looking at it, memories came back, and I was like, that sticker was there. It was like I think it was from the guy that probably shipped it to me at the time, and it was ripped and was just left it there, you know.
Oh, you deal with glue and stuff here.
Yeah, I had a still the whatever the courier was at the time, the name on it, and the tracking number, a bit of the tracking number there, and then there was a little bit splash of paint. That's what I also remember. And then obviously had the dent on the top of the case, and then there was a bit of like a kind of sort of like a little bit of lump on the top of it, right? And I was like, Jesus, and it's green, but I thought my one was blue. I thought, must be green. And then I opened it because I didn't really kind of look at it the first 2 weeks, right? And then last Thursday I actually opened it and looked at it. And the way they broke dead stock, you know, when you have a Les Paul case and you have that little sort of a
fold out bit up the neck.
And that little wall was pushed and broken, the way it was broken in mine, the way they smashed dead stock, and it's exactly the same case. And it's only down the road for like maybe 20 kilometers from here he bought it.
That's absolutely crazy. It's like it found its way back to you.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, it's a little bit mad, you know, when you think about it. Because at the time, I think I probably fucked it at the bin. You know, because it smashed that Epiphone. They couldn't fix it. And obviously when I came, I didn't know any luthiers here, and I didn't have no clue. I just super glued the neck, you know, but it wouldn't stay.
I'm sure you were extremely pissed off as well.
Honest, it was actually nice. It was a nice Epiphone. It's a nice pickup. It had a split push pulls and all that done already. Like, it had a good electronics. It was a really good Epiphone. You know what I mean? And sounded amazing. I might actually have some video on YouTube there. I'm playing with my brother probably in 2006-7. So I'll send it to you. You will see it. It was lovely. Cherry Burst was a nice top. It actually looked like more like a Gibson than an Epiphone.
Michael, you had showed me some great videos before of you playing with your brothers and his friends, playing some Metallica Kill 'Em All stuff. And I know we had spoke about you growing up and learning Kill 'Em All and Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses and the Black Album by Metallica, mostly by ear.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And when you are a teacher yourself, have you any advice for students these days on what they should be listening to, or what they should be looking out for, or what they should be focusing on to learn songs efficiently?
I don't know. I think at the time, I think you have to love it. You know what I mean? You really have to love it, and because if you love it, then you know, then you put your heart to it, and you will play the ass off all those records. You just sit down and you, once you can figure out a bit of it, just a little bit. I think it's a bit like an addiction. I think the problem now is that you go on YouTube now and everything's there. You go to Ultimate Guitar, which is, I'm actually guilty of it as well, but it's a quicker way to learn. You know what I mean? And then I don't have to waste people's time to figure out stuff. You know what I mean? But then I see, like, I'm obviously use a lot of these kind of books lately, like Fundamental Changes over the lockdown. You know, just kind of learn all the different techniques. They were great, but I found that my ear playing got a bit lazy. You know, and then because you don't get much time to practice, even if you have a really great pitch, it will kind of slip. You know what I mean? Even if you have a perfect pitch, I think it would slip from you anyway if you don't keep on the top of it. You know what I mean?
If you don't use it, you lose it.
I think what people forget now these days that they don't really kind of, I don't know, depend on their ears. They just play whatever's on YouTube. I don't know. I think the guitar kind of walls now compared to what was 2020 kind of a couple of years ago when I started playing. Obviously, back then everybody loved Ibanez, Stevie Vai, and all the more pointy guitar you had it, or type of camera guitar you had it. Everybody loved it. You know what I mean? And that was the thing. Where these would be like piece of junk, you know what I mean? Like heavy, old kind of. There was sort of a lot for them, but not as much. It was always like some like super strats and all this kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? Now it's all this becomes a gimmick. You know what I mean? I think the problem with the guitar world now, especially these days, is that they become more like of kind of handbag for ladies, kind of, you know, handbag boutique. It's all about like
expensive,
you know, because it says stuff in Murphy lap, you know what I mean? Wow, you know, it's going to be amazing. It was heavy age, slightly age, fucking this age, that age. Like, it's a fucking nice ball at the end of the day. You know what I mean? It will always sound kind of the same. You know what I mean? It has a certain character, you know what I mean? So I think when I was learning, like, you see, when I was younger, you seen Les Paul, it was any Les Paul that was like the one that was made in Czech Republic, or like anything that was made in Asia, like you get your hands on it. I remember I had a Lenovo Les Paul. It was a kind of like a Les Paul, but it's probably made by Echo. It was the Italian brand, also 70s. It's all maple, right? Like a maple cap was, you know, from natural woods. Fucking sounded amazing. You know, at the time when I played it, I was like, wow, you know. And I think because people have more money now, maybe, and then those things are more available. It's less about playing guitar, really. At the end of the day, it's all having a cool hobby. It's like having a great watch on your hands. It's like having one of these.
Yeah.
Yes.
Show nearly.
It's actually told, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I took it the other day to Spain, look, and there's a Joe's strings printed in it on the back, you know what I mean? There's a wood missing here. They had to be, like, you have to play them, you know what I mean?
They're not meant to be case queens.
Exactly. I think it's a lot of that, and then you go in these shops, like, 10 guitars, or like, I don't know, all these guys on reverb, and they, like, you know, like, you see those prices of, like, a Greeny Les Paul for 20 grand, like, or whatever, 30 grand, like, that's insane. Who's going to buy this? You know what I mean? I understand maybe a vintage guitars have a little bit more different values, like a little bit like old furniture, antiques. You know what I mean? If you're into that, that always going to hold a value. It's definitely good.
It's almost a shame not to play these, like these guys that lock them up in cases and put them up on the wall.
Yeah, no, it really is a disgrace. Like, they're meant to be played.
Michael, I'd love to talk about your current band at the minute. You were just back from tour, is that right?
Yeah. Well, we kind of like, we go off and we do gigs down there, you know, around Europe.
How did that all happen? How did it start?
I think it was in 2020. I came back from Philippines with my wife Agnes, and then we came back from holidays, and it's just like, obviously, as you're flying back, all this stuff in Asia is already like serious, right? I come back here, it took a couple of weeks before everything got closed down, really, right? But I think it was I meant to go to Marco skiing, right? And I think it was probably a week or maybe 2-3 days before the lockdown happened, and I got a call from one of the guys from, like, Gary from the Harleys, if I'm available for the gig. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So I gave actually my ticket to Casper, right? And I went play with the guys. I think it was in Kerry or something like that, in Killarney. And then I came back. At night, Grace messaged me if I want to jam something easy, right? If I like this, like, fuck yeah, you know. But I didn't at the time. I thought, like, well, it could be Brian Downey, it could be anything maybe that Brian's putting together himself, you know, like, you know. And he's like, oh cool, I'll bring you in touch, right? And then next day, whatever, 2 days later, everything went to lockdown. So then when everything went, like, for 6 months, I haven't heard anything from the guy, and I was like, Jesus, maybe that's Brian's band, you know what I mean? And all this kind of stuff. And then I think in the summer everything reopened again, and Brian again messaged me on Messenger, like, if I'm still interested to jam, do you mean? And I said, yeah, I want to do it. I want to play, like, you know, it would be great to play with you and all that kind of stuff. So he said to me, okay, so just keep it that for yourself. There'll be audition for Brian Downey, right? And he told me, and something like that. And says that Brian's manager is going to be in touch with you, you know. So he gave me his number. It's like, that number is going to call you, right? And just have a chat with him, and we organise all the audition for you. Like, you know, all the things. So I went to kind of audition with them. Finally, they got the date, and I think again got cancelled or something like that, because maybe Matt wasn't well or somebody wasn't well, and that was pushed 2 weeks again. So I had actually a little bit more time to learn the songs again, and you know, I went there and, like, there's no anybody else, just me and the guys, and then Brian comes up, you know, and then we just start playing, you know, and he seems to be happy because they finished, and, you know, like, we finished a couple of songs, like, oh, your man is great, and, you know, and all that, and we just played, you know. I don't know, it just went. It's sort of like, because I grew up listening to Tunisia as well back in Poland, like, you know, and I think just always that sort of a name, Dublin, Tennessee, and obviously I've seen one of the first clips I've seen on YouTube when the YouTube came out around was probably, you know, Bad Reputation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I've seen Brian's face somehow, I don't know, like it's probably something there, you know, sort of led me into all this over the years. And then, you know, we just played it, and he was very happy, and we had a good time. And I finished, you know, I packed it up. I told there might be another person after me, and then, you know, just like, see you next Wednesday. Okay. So I took my gear, went home, and then that evening, Dirk, Brian's manager, rang me. Then it's like, well, there's a position available if you want. You know what I mean? If you want to take it, it's up there for you to take it. You know, they're happy with you and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And yeah, and I said, yeah, I'll go for it. You know what I mean?
Jesus.
And, again, everything went to lockdown again. I haven't heard Jesus from more than even 6 months. Nothing. I think I was in touch a little bit with Dirk. He always kind of just check up on me if I'm, you know, still want to do it and all that kind of stuff. And the first gig I did with them was actually for sessions from Oblivion. It's on RTE. It's like a kind of music or whatever channel. I don't know. The studio in Dunboyne got sort of finance for that during the COVID. They put out artists, so they did like a little program, and a lot of people was, you know, because there's no gigs, so it's kind of, everybody was featured and they were recording it. So we went there to play with Brian 3 songs. Do you mean? And that was my first performance. Was recorded like live straight away.
Into the deep end.
The first thing I play, like, you know, nervous. Do you mean, like, you know, on the soundcheck first, like, because we did two takes, and I think first take was really soundcheck, just like, you know, and it's like. The balls on me, like, look at Brian, after, you know, and then we did it again, and it was fine, you know. And I think that's sort of a like, you know, it's that kind of understudy. It's just another guy as well, you know what I mean? Like the place.
Yeah.
You know, we idolize all these great musicians, do you mean? But they're also human beings. They also make mistakes.
Yeah.
So then I was like, it's grand, and I just played it and I relaxed. It was fine. Then it went really well, you know what I mean? It was great booze. I mean, it was like, it was so warm, so hot, and then obviously the whole adrenaline and the nerves. Mm-hmm. Somebody was pouring the water over your head, with sweat just dropping down. But yeah, that was good fun. And then I think then again, we went to do another gig. It was for a festival in Switzerland, right? And that was my first full gig.
Great.
And on the way back, they got me wrong, you know, COVID test, and I got stuck in Italy. First of all, we were late for the plane because the whole motorway was just from Switzerland to Milan, where we're flying from, was like no chance, took ages to get there. So Brian obviously and Matt, they went first, and then there was a Brian Grace and left, and then James stayed with me behind, and then he had a flight, and then we both were going. So we booked the flight, right? You know, Ryanair, obviously, it's always a disaster, right? So we booked that, and we booked the tickets, and I'm going to the check-in, and then it's like, oh man, you don't have the PCR test. Do you mean it's the wrong test? So then I stayed. I had to go over the motorway. Pain in the ass. Like I had to get the taxi.
Yeah, everything was so awkward.
It was awkward. I got the PCR test. Had to wait, in a hotel for 48 hours to get the PCR test. So I just went around Bergamo, took the train, and just had a good toy out of it, you know. But I think that's kind of cemented maybe the position for me in the band, because I didn't make a drama about it. I just was cool, do you mean? And I was kind of, I was easy to deal with it, you know what I mean? I didn't make a fuss about it, you know what I mean? What
was your favourite Tin Lizzy song growing up?
I remember my brother brought, obviously he heard this band is great. Somebody told him, so he bought a Wild One cassette at the time, because they're cheaper than CDs back in obviously 2000, 2001. So he brought this, and obviously I was heavy to Hendrix at the time, and I was like, who's this guy with Afro and, black and all this, and I was like, that must be some sort of a Jimi Hendrix clone, and then obviously I put a cassette. But I thought he looked cool, I was like, that looks great. So I put a cassette on and started listening to it. So I think Still Overdue, I think that sort of the Robo Soul definitely, and the whole vibe of the song. I think that was sort of like really sort of caught my ears, my attention. Boys Are Back in Town, obviously, Out of the Fields.
Yeah.
You hear all these Persian walkways and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I was quite blown away.
Emerald is one of my favourites, I think.
Emerald is one of yours.
Emerald, I think was there, but I think it was the Emerald probably the version that Gary did later with Phil maybe.
Yeah, Gary. Yeah.
Warrior would be one of my favourites. Even when I went to see you guys play in the Well last year, and you just played Warrior, that was fucking rocking.
Yeah, that's a great. I love playing that song. I think Johnny the Fox album was great because then obviously as the internet went on and you can kind of download all the albums and just go on the one of those websites and just get all the Tin Easy albums. I think my favorite probably that I always was listening to it was and even when I was here in Ireland, so my headphones always on the little MP3 players always like Johnny the Fox, Alive and Dangerous, and probably Bad Reputation are probably my 3 favourite albums. Some stuff from the Black Rose as well.
Yeah, Black Rose is brilliant as well. I always enjoyed what's the You Can Do Anything You Want to Do, Toughest Street in Town.
Yeah. I never really kind of got into the first 3 albums very well. That might be much into detail. I probably should listen to that a little bit more. You know what I mean? Because obviously my brother Martin always kind of like, because he was working all the time, even back home, he was always buying sort of either CDs or cassettes. He was buying full albums. He was always collecting, he would have all the Metallica albums, he would have all the Guns N' Roses albums. Then obviously at the time I was, whatever I had the money, I would buy and collect all the Jimi Hendrix albums, or all the Stevie Ray Vaughan albums. Do you mean? I still actually have them here. So he always did that. You know what I mean? That was always like our kind of tradition. Do you mean to do it?
Is Jimmy your favourite guitarist of all time, or who would be your top 2 or 3? We'll say. I know it's a tough question.
I don't know. I think when I was younger, when I was probably between the 12, 14, 15, or probably to death, I would listen probably Hendrix, Santana, and probably Eric Clapton a lot.
Okay.
Then obviously Richie Blackmore was also my favourite one. And Stevie Ray Vaughan, couldn't get his albums. And because my brother, when I was obviously starting playing guitar, my brother got the Land of the Texas Slug on the cassette as well, and I listened to it. I remember hearing Lenny, and I was like, I want to play like this guy. And that was it. And then my brother, I never got the copy of this cassette. My brother just gave it back to his mate that he was playing at the time, maybe next day, because it's such a it was like a Bible, that cassette. Do you mean? It was a holy thing, and not many people had it.
The live album with Double Trouble.
It was just a Texas Cold album, the first album. Right? I remember hearing the Rude Moon and all this stuff. I was like blown away. I was like, wow. I told you that was better than Hendrix. Do you know what I mean? Because I had Hendrix with BB sessions and all this stuff, Driving South. I always kind of when I heard this, was like, Jesus, this guy actually sounds like it's modern. And even that looking back, it was only 20 or 30 years old, but it was still it was so fresh. I think there's a couple albums maybe RX Brains and all this stuff, when you put it on, it still sounds fresh. Do you mean? I don't know, Boston, it's another album, you listen to it. For me, I always find it fresh. I listen to Led Zeppelin, and that for me sounds 70s. You know what I mean? I'll listen to I don't know.
What about Rory Gallagher? Was he ever on your?
Yeah, I've heard about him, but again, you couldn't get his album.
Couldn't get stuff. Right. Okay.
And there was a guy in Poland. Actually, he's a bit of not really a comedian. He's just kind of he does some shows on the TV and the radio, but he always had a sort of a funny humor about him. And he has his other mates, and they were always in the music, and they had a radio show always at night on one of the main Polish radio stations, and he would have a blues audition because he's into blues and stuff like that. So he would play a lot of these kind of vinyls and stuff like that. So I remember I heard once this fucking guy screaming, and then the slide guitar coming off, I was just like, oh. And I can what the hell is that? It's that's Rory Gallagher, And but then my brother used to go obviously to college at the time still, and used to go to the shop. MediaMarkt would be like, I don't know, like MediaMarkt would be something like you have, I don't know, in Ireland, when you can buy all the Harvey Normans and stuff like that, right? And you can buy all this kind of stuff, but they also had CDs and things like that. So I used to go there and pick some CDs. So I was kind of like, once or twice I went with him, and if I had my chance and a bit of money, I'd look for the albums. I never could find Rory Gallagher, do you mean?
Yeah.
That was my pity. And obviously then, as I went a little bit like past the 16, 17, I used to listen to Budgie, a lot. And then obviously Guns N' Roses at the time, and Tennessee at the time. That would be my sort of stuff I was learning. I went from the blues thing from Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah.
I got a bit tired of it. Like, the reverse, like, look, if you're going to play this all the time, you're never going to get really good, because you're going to be only good at one thing.
Yeah, you got to adapt.
You're never going to adapt your technique, or like, it's not about just being technical and playing all this, right? But it's like, just for yourself, it'll make you, when you come back to that, then it's going to be easier actually to play if you kind of push yourself, all this other stuff, like, gradually go from the blues, rock, and then do metal, and and I kind of listened to him at that time, and I sort of went and learned all these things like AC/DC and Ozzy Osbourne and all this stuff as well. And obviously, as I was 16, 17, 18, my ears were really good at the time. I could pick all this stuff by ear, you know what I mean? And then I've seen people doing it on YouTube or seeing the tabs, like, that's wrong.
Yeah, because you had it by ear at that stage, as you were saying.
You had it mastered.
But like, it was so gradually then, like, I got into those guitar players, do you mean? So eventually, as I got a bit older, my taste starts changing a little bit as well,
You're trying to give out some good wisdom as well, and trying to influence some students of yours like myself off the Kirk Hammetts of the world and listen to some really, really gifted players.
Yeah, I mean, because then you just got, like, it's great to like have your hero, but then there's so many heroes, you know what I mean? I think it's like, if you just stuck to one, you just become like a bad copy at the end of the day. Because I think, if you play, I think what Michael Schenker maybe said once is like, to be in the first league, you want to learn how to play like your heroes, and then you forget about all that, and then you're trying to make your own sound of it. And I think what he meant by that, it's because you're playing these different styles and people, different music, you kind of, it depends how creative obviously you have, how much time you have. They didn't have to do that, they just play guitar, that's what they were. So creative, probably come up with the best stuff, but you start finding your own voice. And I think at the end of the day, it's about your own voice, do you know what I mean? It's like, I love Stevie Ray Vaughan, and now it makes me a bit sad about it, that you go on YouTube and you see these great players, those kids that can play, and they probably learn a lot of that stuff from tabs or YouTube, and they kind of have all the hands and guitars and pedals and trying to get the close to Stevie Ray Vaughan sound. I never aspired to that. I want to be like him, but I want to be myself. Yeah, and that was my always moment, because you can't, because then when you learn stuff note by note, the way they play, they feel, and if you can kind of come close to what they play, you're always going to be, shit, I can't get this, or shit, no, that all comes in that right time. Just, that's his own thing, and you're never going to be able to copy that. Why? Because he was himself. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think you have to be yourself when you play an instrument.
You have to be original.
Yeah. And it's hard not to be original, because everything so far being played. You know what I mean? I think that's why guitar becomes sort of more of a gimmick now, and sort of a hobby thing, rather than maybe back in the 70s. It was an instrument that people actually wrote music on it.
Definitely.
That sort of art maybe starts kind of phasing it out, because it's all about 1 minute Instagram videos, you know what I mean? And
it's a different angle now, isn't it? It's a completely different angle now with social media. And
a lot of people are missing the depth.
They're not getting a feel for it even.
There's a guy on Instagram the other day. This video comes up to me, and he kind of looks like this, and just does this mad stretch and does this legato thing, great, but shreds like mad, like super fast. I can't do that, but I'm thinking, like, you put him on the stage with Brian Downeys playing Tennessee, he would fail after 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, you know what I mean? And they can play, but they can't play live. It's all fine.
Show ponies.
It's fine to play in your bedroom, you know what I mean? But I think when I was growing up, maybe the world at the time, and maybe where I was coming from was different. I was dreaming to play on stage, play in front of people, play for people. And even now, as I'm trying to come back to do some videos again, like, for YouTube and stuff like that, it's like, this is not fucking me, like, you know what I mean?
The difference is, though, that people don't know how many takes those people attempt to get that right. A lot of your videos are the take, or the second or third take, or it's the solo that's on the stage is in the moment that you're ripping it.
Yeah, and it is what it is, you know what I mean? And it's good to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. We're just human beings. It's all about that. Yeah, I think it's over-edited, it's over-produced, it's over-taught, you know. But yeah, I think the musicianship starts kind of, it's like the songs. The songs become became simpler and simpler and simpler over the decades. I think it's the same. We have so many amazing players now, but there is no music actually coming out. It's just noise of licks, chops. It's all about chops.
How fast you can play, not about the feel.
You know what I mean? Because like that guy Matteo Mancuso, right? He's amazing. Like his technique, his playing. It's just like you look at it, it's like I've never played like that in my life. How many hours I'd spend? It's just absolutely talent and the work that was put into it since he was a kid, and the mentoring of him that went behind to get to the point he's now here at like such a young age. That's why he's sort of a kind of prodigy, I think. But then you listen to him and it's amazing. But then like you listen to these songs, well, he starts kind of writing the songs. Some of the songs are kind of instrumental tunes are quite nice. But that's the problem. There's a lot of those kind of guys, but there's no music kind of coming out from them. Like he can do it. He has a band and he's like stuff, and some of it is really nice kind of stuff. But it's just I don't know. It's less about music now. It's about how much expensive guitar you have, or two-rock amp, or that kind of stuff. I don't know.
Well, Michael, we're conscious that you have a lesson to get to, so I think what we'll do is we will cut this and we'll do another part and we'll finish it off if that's cool.
Okay, yeah, that's cool.
We might have to come back for part 2.